Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another video here. So in this video, I'm actually doing a trailer breakdown of a trailer that we got a couple months ago. Honestly, it's not even really that one trailer. It's actually several trailers, but earlier we actually got the tease that there's actually going to be a pretty big death. It seems like there's going to be a very shocking moment. I think it's at the end of episode 18, at least based off of all the early reviews and stuff. That seems to be when it is. And so yeah, I want to talk about that because it seems like this death that is apparently supposed to throw comic book viewers off, it's definitely going to propel the season into something that's going to be pretty intense. And so yeah, I want to get into that here. I mean, it's all I've been thinking about. I'm super excited for this. So obviously, before going further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. The show is returning in 10 days. Tomorrow, I actually have a recap video for episode 16 on just what happened and whatnot, and sort of, my thoughts going into episode 17 here. So that will be dropping tomorrow, or it's going to be dropping Saturday, but most likely tomorrow, along with some early review videos, because there's a lot of early reviews out there. And honestly, based off of all of the early reviews that I've seen, and I've been looking for a lot of them, there's probably still some that I'm missing, but I'm definitely going to keep searching for it, because obviously some haven't even posted it. Like, the embargo was lifted today, so it's sort of, you can kind of post it whenever. But yeah, so I'm going to be looking out for all of that. But most are praising it. Honestly, I haven't found an article that said anything negative about the first two episodes here, and they're actually praising how intense and fun it is, though I have seen some concern about how the show is going to wrap up, I guess the overall story here, with 6 more episodes left after these first two. And there's nothing bad to say about the story, because there's so much going on. It's so much fun. It's so intense, and it's a thrill, but you got to wrap up so much in 6 episodes. And so I almost kind of get that concern a little bit. That's why I sort of have a little bit of complaints with the Reaper arc a little bit, because it kind of felt useless a little bit, right? Just because Leah's dead already, and it's like, why did any of that matter? Like, honestly, it kind of felt like a really pointless story overall. Nothing mattered in the end, right? It didn't contribute to really anything besides Maggie returning. But I think, if you're trying to work on a story for Maggie to return, you could have done something so simple with Georgie or with the Commonwealth, honestly, like something that would have just made a lot more sense. And so, yeah, maybe things are going to feel really intense and maybe a little rushed, although I hope that things don't feel really rushed. It looks like the next 8 episodes are going to be a lot of fun. And so, yeah, in my review breakdown of everything, I'm going to talk about all that, talk about my thoughts on some of that, because obviously that is going to be some sort of concern. I mean, the thing is, The Walking Dead, I think that's the one thing too, is like, how much do you want it to feel like it's ending? Because The Walking Dead is ending, but it's not really ending, right? Like, again, I think The Walking Dead is only ending because of the streaming service rights, right? I think AMC wants that back. I think if AMC ends the show now, then I think that's what the deal is anyways. I could be totally wrong, so really don't quote me on any of this. I have no idea, but I know I've seen some articles and some quotes and stuff from people like posting online that it has to do with that, really, and trying to get those rights back to own The Walking Dead streaming rights. And so makes sense, AMC is really, they're wanting to work with AMC Plus and make that work. And so Netflix has it right now. And so I think if there's that whole life of a series thing, which maybe that ends a couple of years after you end the show. So The Walking Dead's ending this year. Maybe it takes a couple more years, like 2 or 3 years. I don't know how long it takes. Just like the Daredevil thing, Punisher, Jessica Jones and stuff. After a certain amount of time, AMC's going to get that property back, right? They'll be able to have The Walking Dead from season 1 to 11 all on AMC Plus, which definitely is something that they want because they made the show, right? So that's why I believe they're actually ending the show. They don't want to stop anything. Like, they seem to be a lot more focused on the spinoffs right now, which is definitely a complaint that I've seen. The people are more hyped in general, and it seems like people are really focused on the future of The Walking Dead and just trying to get through these next 8 episodes, which is kind of insane. But I also do get it, because you have Rick returning next year. You have The Walking Dead Dead City, which apparently is supposed to have like 1 million or 2 million walkers in the city. That's game changing, right? Like, that's totally different than anything that we've gotten so far. So obviously people are excited for that. They're excited to see Michonne back, to see Rick back. But to get into what I was talking about here, and sort of the point of the video is, episode 18, like I said, it seems to end with a death. I don't know if that's actually where it sort of lines up, but people have been reporting, or there's been early reviews out and stuff that said that there's going to be a death and shocking moments and this and that. And apparently it's something that, I mean, most people, honestly, I've seen it in several reviews now, are saying that comic book viewers, or comic book readers, I guess, aren't going to see this coming and we're going to be shocked. And yeah, I mentioned all that in a previous video. I just want to add some more context to this to see what actually happens and then sort of, go through the trailer, because I watched the trailer, I watched a lot of footage, and I want to give some predictions on this. I want to talk about how the trailer, I think, may give us a hint. I mean, it's possible they never gave us certain characters and stuff that happens later on. Maybe a character's off doing something else. But I feel like I sort of understand who's going to die now. I have 6 characters here listed. Actually, I have 5 characters listed, and I think 2 of them are probably, or 3 of them probably doesn't make too much sense. But 2 characters in particular, I actually think this makes a lot of sense. And one of them is almost a little too obvious, but the other one, it's a comic book thing. People are expecting this character to play a big role. I think that this would actually be pretty shocking. So yeah, anyways, let's get into this. So comicbook.com posted these 2 quotes here, and I'll leave a link down below to the actual article. They go into a whole review. There's actually very specific things on certain elements of the plot and certain things that characters are doing. So if you want to know all of that, again, I'm going to talk about a lot of that stuff in a video tomorrow. For this, I just really want to focus on this aspect to it. But yeah, at one point, the article says, as a new deal, which is episode 8, or episode 18, I mean, premiering October 9th on AMC, delivers a shocker even comic book readers won't see coming, a surprise sure to twist the season in a new and unexpected direction. And then it goes on to say, mostly set up for what happens next as Eugene, Josh McDermott, and whistleblower Max, Margot Bingham, make moves to undermine the Milton regime. A new deal pumps the brakes a bit until its final minutes. Like many episodes under Kang's tenure as showrunner, deal ends with a jaw-dropper cliffhanger that propels us into the game-changing next episode. And again, people are talking about this big shocking death. People are talking about this big moment. I think this is exactly what it is. I think episode 18 is going to end with a death that apparently is going to, it's a jaw dropper, it's a cliffhanger. And yeah, I'm really hyped for this. And so it's just sort of a matter of how does this relate to really everything? I mean, the one thing that I'm going to say is, first of all, it says it propels us into the game-changing next episode, which is, I believe, it's titled Variant. So I think that one is actually going to be on the Variant Walkers, right? I think we're going to see Aaron and Jerry and all of them in that episode. I don't think that a lot of these shots here of Aaron and Jerry from the trailer, I don't see these shots actually, being in episode 18. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think episode 18 is going to end in a way where it's, again, very shocking, and it's definitely something that, and I'll talk about it right away because I think I know who the character is. It's going to end in a way that builds up so much hype. 19's, I think, gonna, sort of go away from it a little bit and focus on some of the new, walkers and see how they can climb. And there's going to be a bunch of stuff that happens there. And all that's going to build to episode 20. However, episode 18 ends if a certain character dies. And right now I'm thinking, I guess I can kind of tease it right now. I'm thinking it's either going to be Sebastian or Lance. Then I think that in 20, you're going to be dealing with the aftermath of that, of Sebastian and or Lance dying, plus the new variant walkers and the walker horde attacking the Commonwealth. And I think 20 could get really, really crazy. 20 or 21, and then just sort of combine that with, like, someone's going to find out Rick's alive at some point after that, and then you get into the last 3 episodes or whatever. So it's, yeah, these next couple of episodes here are going to be really intense. And so I went through the trailer quite a bit. I broke down a lot of the trailer. I went from shot to shot. And honestly, a lot of the footage that I see from shots, and I talked about this in a previous video, I just want to add a lot more context here because I didn't go through every shot. I was mostly just talking about that one shot of Ezekiel. But I went through so much, and you don't really see shots of certain characters later on. For example, there's Jerry, Aaron, Lance, Sebastian, and Pamela Milton. Now, on Pamela Milton, I went through everything. Pamela Milton is seen a lot, obviously, within the Commonwealth. She's not really seen outside of the Commonwealth at all. I don't think she's going to leave. There's going to be this big showdown that happens at the Commonwealth. I don't think that's happening in episode 18. I really don't. If that does, maybe she is the character that dies, but I just don't see it. I see 17 and 18 being crazy action-packed, a bunch of stuff happening. 19 being some of that Walker stuff, and then 20 being sort of that, maybe there's actually, like, the Walkers actually infiltrate the Commonwealth. And then just sort of where do you go from there? And again, at that point, Pamela Milton is still alive. Pamela Milton's also sort of the big bad to all of this, so it just doesn't really make too much sense to kill her off right now, right? Jerry and Aaron, I mentioned in a previous video that I thought maybe Jerry could die. Or Aaron. Obviously they're not really seen later on, and I really went through the trailer and I went through a lot of footage. They're not seen at all later on. Like, basically besides the variant episode, they're not seen really at all. And so that kind of, maybe they die in 19, right? Like, no one's watched episode 19. Maybe one of them die. I've seen some people say, well, no, certain actors were on set for the last days. The thing is about that, like, I've also heard of other things where people have said actors have been seen in other locations and their look totally different from when they have to film the show, so it's kind of hard to say. And all I'll say on that is, like, well, it's the last season, it's the last episodes or whatever. It really makes a lot of sense that AMC or just the writers and stuff, showrunners, maybe they would get the actors to stay around a little bit here because they know people are going to be watching, and this will be a really great way to sort of, hide spoilers and whatnot. So I think this stuff is possible, but again, I don't think Jerry and Aaron are going to be the deaths. I originally thought Jerry, but I just don't see it now because I think he's going to play a role in 19. Now, he could die in episode 19, but again, I think he's going to be in episode 19. And so I also wanted to mention, there's also Mercer as well. I'm still unsure on Mercer, but there's a lot of shots of him, in his orange suit, and it seems like he plays a pretty big role here, I would say, with Negan and with some of the other characters and trying to, I guess, search for them and stuff. So I could see him maybe actually dying here. Maybe that could be a shocking death, depends on who kills him and whatnot. But I just also, it's kind of hard to see how that would be game changing, right? Because again, like, I guess they're not saying it's game changing, but basically it's a jaw dropper cliffhanger. Whoever dies, it's a jaw dropper, it's a cliffhanger that propels us into the game changing next episode. And so I just don't see it being Mercer. I originally thought so. I'm going to back off that now. I don't think it's Mercer. I don't think it's Jerry or Aaron. I don't think it's Pamela Milton. And now it comes down to two characters, and that is Sebastian and Lance. First, we'll start off with Lance, and again, I can't really decide between the two, so you guys are definitely going to have to. I think the most exciting one would be Sebastian. I mean, you could argue if Sebastian was killed off, it's a little underwhelming, but it depends on how he dies. In the trailer, we do see Negan fighting him, so what if he kills Sebastian? It depends on how he does it, but like, that could be a really crazy scene. Honestly, that could be a lot of fun. In terms of Lance dying, it kind of makes sense based off of where we were in part 2, right? Lance is definitely overall, out of every character from the Commonwealth, he's like the main villain for sure. And so you kind of look at all of it, and I kind of have to think that, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, I think, for Lance to almost die, because he's been on this crazy villain path. He wants to establish himself as the leader, and I feel like he feels like he's the leader. We've seen that a lot throughout part 2. Pamela Milton might hate that, and maybe Lance dies. Maybe Pamela Milton kills Lance, right? Maybe that's how the episode ends. Besides that, it could be Sebastian, and maybe, what is so shocking about it is that Sebastian dies because of whatever. Say Negan kills him, or Daryl kills him, or something. I would like Negan, I think, to kill him, just because he hasn't really done much lately, so I think that'd be kind of cool. And then that's going to really anger Pamela Milton, right? I think regardless of what's going to happen here, I think, first of all, I do think it's going to be Lance or Sebastian. I think if Lance dies, I think they could do the comic thing with Dwight, and I could see Pamela Milton potentially killing Lance. I don't know who would be the one to actually do it, because if they're doing the thing in the comic where, Dwight has his gun pointed at Pamela Milton, and then Rick's forced to kill Dwight. It was just a crazy moment. Rick and Dwight were friends, although things got rocky towards the end there. It was pretty intense. Lance, I could see him trying to take over after all this, trying to take over. Pamela Milton's shocked, she doesn't really know what to do. Maybe someone's there. Maybe it's Sebastian. Maybe it's Carol. Carol spends a lot of time with Lance. That's very possible. And I could see that being, that could be such a big moment there that really makes Pamela Milton, basically at this point, really terrifying, because now she's just going to kill everyone, right? And we might be learning a lot of secrets here, just with how her leadership works, how her style works, and how maybe there's some connections here with the Pacific Republic and just, the ruthless things that they do. So again, I think Lance, they could do that scene there. I thought that scene was basically the Maggie, Daryl, and Leah scene, but maybe they do it again here. And then with Sebastian, I think that would just be really crazy. It depends on how they do it. Please don't let it be like a 10-second scene where, we see like Daryl and Negan fight Beta, and it's, it's supposed to be so epic, but it's 10 seconds. Like, if you're going to kill off a character like Sebastian, please have it, last a while. Have it a few minutes, have this crazy encounter, which it seems like it is. And that's why I'm kind of, those are my predictions right now. I think it's going to be Lance or Sebastian. In terms of which one I'm leaning on the most, I want to go with Lance, just because I think Lance makes more sense for the story. Sebastian doesn't really make too much sense for the story, but that would be way more shocking. And again, I've went through the whole trailer. I looked at every single thing from Comic-Con, and there's really nothing of them later on. Like, I've seen so many shots of Lance basically just sort of early on, and there's nothing of him later on with, like, you know, when you see a shot of, I mean, really with all the characters everywhere, even some stuff with Pamela Milton and whatnot, there's not a lot of stuff of Lance later. You don't see Sebastian later, but again, you don't really see Sebastian a lot, and he's a character that's not really around. But because you don't see him around, I added him to the list. You don't see Jerry or Aaron in the trailer at all, but, you know, they could die in episode 19. Plus, you don't always see every character. Pamela Milton, you know, you don't see her later on, but you also haven't seen her a lot. Mercer as well, you don't really see a lot later. So he's a possibility. But yeah, out of all those options, I'm going to get rid of Mercer, Pamela Milton, Aaron, and Jerry. I think it comes down to Lance and Sebastian. And I think after, you know, we get closer to episode 18 especially, I'll give some predictions on who I think it's going to be. But if you guys had to choose, who do you think would die, Lance or Sebastian, or do you think someone else is going to die? Definitely post your thoughts down below. I mean, if you noticed anything from the trailer that I just missed, you know, a shot that seems like it would be from episode 20, 21, 22, even 23 or something like that, and there's a certain character that's actually there, definitely let me know. But from what I can tell, a lot of that trailer focuses on episode 17 and 18. Like, I think, honestly, I would say 50 to 60% or maybe like 40%, but I think a good portion of that trailer is actually focused on those two episodes, with a little bit more going into 19, and then it sort of, I think, goes less and less after that. Because there's a lot of stuff. If you remember, there's like a preview special where we see a lot of stuff, and there's certain characters that aren't involved there. So yeah, as of now, I'm sticking with Sebastian and Lance, but let me know. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.